One of the questions I have is, how does the passport thing work? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm Cruising Jules. Chances are if you want to go on one of the major cruise lines, you're going to need a passport. There's one exception probably, and that would be for Americans, and that's if you're doing a round trip cruise on Norwegian Cruise Lines out of Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm going to talk about having a passport from the Canadian or American perspective. Depending on your itinerary, passport is usually adequate. The odd time you may require a visa. I don't think I've ever required a visa for the Caribbean, but again, I'm giving you the Canadian perspective. If you're coming from overseas and you're going on a Caribbean cruise, maybe you need one. I don't know. You want to check with the cruise line and the country that you're planning on visiting to see if they have any entry or exit requirements. Entry is when you enter a country for the first time, and exit is when you leave the country. So how does this tie into cruising? Well, on a cruise ship, you could be in one country one night, you get on the ship, 4 or 5 o'clock, you sail away, the next day you wake up, you're in a new country, and so on and so forth. When you book a cruise, you don't necessarily have to have your passport ready when you actually make your booking, but you need to have it before you get to the ship. Nowadays, you do your check-in ahead of time. It could be a week before, it could be 2-3 months before. Generally, you don't check in until you've made your final payment, but keep in mind, when you have a passport, look at the date in your passport. If it's expiring within 6 months, you may be in a situation where you might not be able to board the ship. So I'm going to give an example. Last I knew, maybe things have changed, Bahamas. Bahamas is a country that requires your passport to be valid for at least 6 months. So just keep that in mind. Some countries, they don't want anybody in their country with a passport that's expiring anytime soon. If you have a cruise coming up and your passport's expiring like a week or 2 after you're supposed to be back from your cruise, you might want to think about getting a new passport. So passport's on the ship. What happens? You're going on a cruise. Most times you're going to be going on a cruise that's going to multiple countries. I've seen all kinds of scenarios happen. First of all, you will have to show your ID when you get at the cruise port. They're not going to let you board the ship until they see your passport. That's number 1. Number 2, I've seen everything from them collecting my passports there on the spot at the check-in counter to it being in my possession the whole cruise. So it runs the gamut. On my last cruise in South America, we had a notice that a room steward would be collecting our passports and they would give us a receipt for it. Actually, our room steward collected it before we even set sail. You'll know who your room steward is. That's one of the first things that happens when you get on the cruise ship. You're going to meet your room steward. That's the person that cleans your room for you during the vacation. But sometimes they'll do something like this type of administrative thing. And it does save you time, so you're not standing in a line up at guest services or whatever. The cruise line will notify you somehow of how the passport collection is going to work. And every time I've had my passport collected by the cruise line, they've given me a receipt. Would I trust the cruise line with my passport? Absolutely. I think they would do a pretty good job of safekeeping them, and they probably go into some major safe or vault. Yeah, I've never heard of a scenario where the cruise ship has lost somebody's passport. Before the ship gets to shore, the people on the ship need to be pre-cleared by that country's immigration. It's interesting, all of the behind the scenes stuff. I've seen immigration officials on the ship before we even get into port sometimes. So I'm not sure if they get on the ship while we're all sleeping or how that works, or if they climb on through some boat. Sometimes you will see the local country's immigration officers on the ship before you get into shore. Or maybe the ship is docked, but we haven't been cleared yet. So they come on and they are probably checking people's documents, and sometimes you don't see anybody. From my experience in cruising, I've only had to present myself to an immigration officer on the ship maybe once, maybe twice out of all the ports I visited. So it's not common, but it can happen. And usually when you do have to go present yourself to an immigration officer on the ship, they'll separate you by country. They will usually give you a designated time to go. If you're going on a 7-day Caribbean cruise out of Florida and you're Canadian or American, you're probably not giving your passport to anyone. You hold on to it the whole time. And you're probably going to want to put it in your safe. Every cruise that I've been on has a safe in the stateroom. I hope that this helped. If you want to learn more about cruising, cruise tips, cruise news, or what ships look like, please subscribe to the channel Cruise and Jules. Until the next time, have a good day.